everybody. This is Tony Nash. Thanks for joining us for another Quick Hit with Complete Intelligence. Today, we're with Tracy Shugart. Tracy is a trader, portfolio manager, and all-around kind of high-profile social media person on markets. We're really, really lucky to have her today to talk about where we are in markets. We've kind of had an all-in everything market for the last few months. And we're trying to figure out where do we go from here? Where are things and what are we looking for the next couple of months? So Tracy, thanks again for joining us. And for those of you who haven't seen us or seen you with us before, can you just take a few seconds and let us know kind of what you do?
So basically, I work for a family office, and I manage an energy portfolio, and then I also have my own account that I trade.
Right. Okay. Very good. And we all look for your statements on markets every day. So I think part of what I'd like to know today, we just started talking about this when we got on the line, is where are we? It feels like markets have kind of taken a breather this week. And so is that what you're seeing? And also, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you notice kind of this entire summer, actually, it's been kind of a buy everything market, right? Mm-hmm. Bonds were up, equities were up, gold's up, crude oil's up, across the board, everything was up, commodities, equities, fixed income. And then just starting in August, about a week and a half ago, we started seeing some of that air kind of let out of those sales. I mean, equities are still kind of grinding higher, but gold reached, or gold futures reached, $2,089, and then came off to $200 really quickly, kind of has stalled out over the last couple of days. Crude oil in general, this summer, it's kind of been stuck in a range. So I guess you could say OPEC did their job. They wanted to stabilize the oil market. They did that. And then this week we've seen some of the air come out of bonds. So I think right now, it was kind of buy everything. We have all the stimulus. We had all this we had all this government stimulus. We had central bank stimulus, and now we're kind of at the point where the government stimulus is out, right? The extra unemployment, right. PPP loans, there's no more checks, things like that. And so I think the market's kind of waiting to see, and then we have the election come up. So I think the markets are kind of waiting to see what is going to happen. And
Robinhood closed their API. So we don't know what the Robinhood traders are doing anymore.
Right. There you go. And then they closed that. So you can't even follow them. No.
Right.
But yeah, so it just seems like there's a lot of things that are unknowns, and if you kind of look at the curve structure, like if you look at like the VIX curve structure, you kind of see a kink in that November area, right? So there's the markets are forward looking at kind of that as an unknown. So these next couple of months might be kind of, it's either going to be, kind of flat until we find out, or, it's going to get really volatile.
Right. The one that really told me that we are in a pause is when gold turned around.
Right.
When we started to see gold turning around, and we've seen it pause where it is now, that's really what kind of showed me that things have changed, or things have at least slowed down. And so are we waiting for clarity around stimulus, or because I don't think it's earnings or anything like that we're looking for. It really does, as you said, kind of a stimulus driven market. Is that really the next thing that we're looking for?
I think it's a combination of things, right? I mean, Fed purchases have curtailed a tiny bit, right? We still have an unknown about what's going to happen, and Congress just adjourned for recess without a decision. So we won't find out what a decision is really probably until September. That leaves a whole unknown, especially when you're talking about that extra unemployment, things of that nature. And then really the big thing is the election, right? Because, people are, there's that, we don't know what the market's going to do if a Biden, if there's a Biden win, what kind of, but really that will only be a sector rotation, in my opinion, right? Because of what their agenda is. But so I think everybody's just very apprehensive right now, right? Because, kind of pulling back on their involvement in the market, being that there are a lot of big unknown factors out there right now.
Right. So we've been in this recession, and it's really one of the only recessions where incomes have actually grown during the recession, which is weird. And we've seen things like retail sales come in and industrial production in recent months come in that they're actually okay. And so it seems like the brakes are put on that with stimulus stopped as well. And so is the question really about being stagnant or rising, or is there a possibility that we tip over and start to decline if stimulus isn't forthcoming, say in the next, by the end of August or early September?
I mean, that's a possibility that we see a pullback in the markets, absolutely. I don't think you're going to see anything, like we saw obviously back in February, but, I could definitely see a market pullback just on people's apprehensions of, of the unknown.
Okay. And then as you mentioned OPEC, and that, crude oil is kind of settled and it's been kind of horizontal for the past couple months. What would move that either way? Is there, do you see, say, airlines coming back online? Do you see major events happening that would really push the oil price up? Or do you think we're just kind of also in a waiting pattern there?
I mean, I think we're in a waiting pattern, but, from what I'm seeing, the fundamentals are improving, even though, people don't really want to see that. But, I look at driving patterns, not only in the States, but, driving patterns in the world. I look at airlines, and things of that nature. And we are seeing a slight improvement. So, I don't foresee now at this point, a big, I know everybody's looking for, a big crash in oil prices again too. But I, don't foresee that at this point, unless obviously something fundamental changes, like the whole world goes on a lockdown again, or some unforeseen event happens. But right now, I mean, the crude oil market looks pretty strong. I mean, we're still oversupply, but we're working off that oversupply, and especially going forward into 2021, when that supply really starts to be worked off. Then we have a capex problem, right? So we're gonna have a supply problem. So I can foresee oil prices even going higher, into next year. But right now, I would say we're, stable to drift higher to the end of the year. I mean, we are hitting kind of that soft season, right? Fall of the soft season. But again, I don't see the oil market really pulling back that much at this point.
Right. Is kind of the back to school, in some states kids are going back to school, in some states they're not, but is that factored into your expectation of rising oil prices, or would that accelerate it?
So no, I mean, I think, well, going back to school, what are you gonna have? You have carpools, you have, whatever you have. I think I would tend to believe that people will be apprehensive to send their kids on a school bus, so they'll probably be driving them to school and things like that. So that's actually, oil demand positive for me.
Okay, very good. Yeah, our view is to see oil grind higher into the end of the year. As of August 1st, that was our view as well. I'm also curious about your views on the dollar. Pardon me. About your views on the dollar. Do you see any dramatic movements either way in the dollar, or are we kind of in the low 90s for the next few months?
Yeah, I think the dollar, short play kind of played out. I mean, the market is so oversold at this point, and everyone is so leaning bearish at this point. I wouldn't be surprised, in the next couple of months, if prices don't go lower, that people start to unwind those short trades, and we could see, not a huge spike in the dollar, but just a general unwind of that shortness.
Great. Okay. Is there anything out there that you're seeing that's really interesting that, that we should know about? I mean, it's late summer, people are kind of tired, they're, not really all into work, but, no, is there anything that you're looking at that we're not really paying attention to?
Well, it's actually looking at just the lumber market recently, and I'm going to send out a few tweets. So I think that's something.
Rocket ship.
So, yeah, I think that's definitely something to watch because the housing market is doing better than anticipated, right? However, we don't need things like, extra, $10,000-$20,000 added on housing costs for new home builds and things like that. So that'll put a very big strain on the market and on home builders. So that's definitely something to watch at this point.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I noticed if you go to Home Depot, the lumber section is empty. Granted, that's not where home builders go, but that's, that's what I see as a consumer is it's just empty. So there look to be obviously there's demand pull, but there really seems to be some sort of supply issue there as well.
There's a supply issue. A lot of the mills have been closed. They have been closing for the last couple of years because the demand hasn't really been that high. Well, at least in British Columbia. But with this new surge, I'm hearing that tons of mills are back up and running. They're running shifts, 24/7 now. Even smaller mills that used to do little to no business are back up and running. So I think that looking forward, October, November, we should see some more supplies so that it's not that constrained.
Just generally, and we can wrap up here in a second, but what we've seen since COVID, from kind of toilet paper to, meat processing to lumber, is real stress put on supply chains.
Right.
And, from your perspective as a portfolio manager and a trader, do times like this make you concerned about the stability of like the U.S. economy, or do these tests make you feel like the people participating in that economy are making their supply chains more resilient? Like, do you think people are actually investing to make those things more resilient, or do you think they're just getting through and they'll forget about it within a few months?
No, I definitely think we are seeing some improvement on supply chains, and moving forward, there's companies that are diversifying out of China, in supply chains closer to, the U.S., Mexico, Latin America, things of that nature. So I think this particular incident, this COVID, kind of really made people rethink and reassess things. And I think we are seeing changes. I mean, it's not easy to move supply chains, obviously, right? So it's just going to take some time, but I definitely see in the markets where, companies are changing.
Right. Very good. Very interesting. All right, Tracy, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the summer, and we'll speak again soon. Okay. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks.